Morning, good morning, good morning. All right. As you can see, we are at home today. At home for part of the day. And then going in a little bit later to the office, hanging with the boys. Daddy daycare, day 2, full effect. No one died yesterday. So that's always a good thing. All right, let me just test this. True, and it is. Awesome. Okay, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, Matt. Hope today is a better day. That sun is shining. We got some snow in May. What more could you ask for? Any day we get to get up is a win. Housekeeping notes for those of you who keep track. Tomorrow is going to be, I learned yesterday at 5 o'clock, yesterday was Tuesday. I had no idea what day of the week it was. So Thursday is going to be my good cousin, one of my best friends in the world, Joshua Virgil. Morning, Mother. He's going to be our guest. Josh is got quite the story. So Josh and I grew up together, and pretty much did everything together. I got my first baseball win in relief of him, actually. So tomorrow will be probably a longer morning brew, because we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, a lot of history. So that'll be a really good one for you guys, especially, Josh approaches life with a completely different aspect than I'd say 99% of people. So definitely worth checking out. So today, this kind of ties into a client and I, this totally coincidental. This is something that I put together on Saturday. It just happened to talk about yesterday with a client is, are you subconsciously ready to quit? So one of the things that a lot of people will, like, whether it's nutrition, whether it's fitness, whatever it is, you are almost preparing to fail. So are you subconsciously ready to quit? So I have mentioned in the past, a lot of times we have tons of thoughts going through our head. We always are thinking, we always focus on the negative thoughts. I scrolled through Facebook for 20 minutes this morning, and I would guess that there was probably 30 to 40 people who were complaining about the snow that we got yesterday. And yes, it's May, and yes, it sucks that it's snowing, but like I was saying yesterday, we can only control what we can control. What we can't control, is it constructive to bitch about it? Pretty much no. So focus on the things that you can control and how you can move forward from that. So are you subconsciously ready to quit? Are you looking for that out in every avenue? So we'll pick on nutrition because it's super easy to do, and it's Friday afternoon, and man, I've been really hitting my food all week, and I haven't had a cheat meal all week. This is going to be the night that I have a cheat meal. But you're positioning yourself, and that's something that you might be thinking that thought earlier in the day, like, oh, all I want is pizza. And as soon as that thought hits your head, that's all you're going to think about. And, because, who's going to be like, oh, all I want is broccoli? Probably not. So our thoughts don't determine our outcomes, right? So if I'm consistently having these thoughts that I'm not fast enough, that I'm not a good enough parent, that I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not a good husband, I'm not a good business person, I'm not this. Those can all be thoughts, but it's the action that determines the outcome. So if I act upon some of those thoughts, then I may not be fast enough. I may not be a good husband. I may not be a good father. I may not be those things. But because you're always going to like, the first time you not like drop a kid, but the first time like you're playing with your kid a little bit and you make them cry, you feel horrible. And I mean, you probably should, but that doesn't make you a bad parent. That just makes you human, right? Like, I mean, I guess depending on the circumstance. But if you're, but a lot of times like your initial thought is like, oh my God, what did I do? That was such a bad idea. Like, from the thought process, we're very hard on ourselves. So thoughts don't determine our outcomes. Our actions determine our outcomes. And this is something that I was talking to a client yesterday about. And to summarize some of that, all right, it was a long message. Like one of the things that I had said was the next step is for you to step back and stop listening to all the negative. Yes, thanks, Mom. That was just an example. I know I am a wonderful father and wonderful husband. That's obvious. My kids are out chewing on Legos right now. I think the next step for you is to step back and stop listening to all the negative voices in your head, because our thoughts do not determine our outcome. Our actions determine our outcome. And you only fail when you do not learn and make forward progress from that failure. If you fail and accept the fate, so if you do listen to those negative thoughts and you say, you know what, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing this workout today, or I am going to have that cheat meal because, I'm so sick and tired of trying to be healthy and I'm just giving into this craving. If that happens and you quote unquote fail, it's only if you do not fail and grow from that you fail. If I fall off, I'm doing 75 hard, we're 22 days in. If I failed with my time management today and I didn't get my workouts in and I have to start all over, if I don't look back and say, okay, where did I make this mistake? How did I quote unquote screw up? Then I have failed. But if I look at it and I say, you know what the problem was? I stayed up late last night watching that documentary, and now I got up 45 minutes later, so I have to make sure that I'm diligent about the time at which I get up, which means I have to go to bed at a certain amount of time. So did I fail or did I just grow? I just grew. So one of the other things that I had said was, Thomas Edison with the light bulb. A reporter asked him how it felt to fail 1,000 times, and his response was, I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps. So that's another thing that I've, especially recently really kind of taken to is one of these, like we'll always have setbacks. Like we always will have, but that's where growth is going to happen is if we subconsciously, if we're ready to quit and then we act upon that. But if we take that and we grow from that and we learn like, okay, this is what knocked me off course and this is what I've got to change. And I'm going to pick on Matt and his M&Ms. We have this ongoing debate about Matt and how his M&Ms will derail his progress. Is if you know that that's a catalyst, then it should never be part of your life if you want to move past that tipping point. It's just like if a kid that I grew up with, a very good friend of mine that from childhood that I grew up with, I remember he had huge drug problems when we got into like our later years. And I remember running into him in a bar one night, and his catalyst to like his escalation was like alcohol would lead to pot would lead to coke would lead to God knows what. And when we were talking about it, he was telling me all of this as he was in a bar. And I just remember thinking, and this was probably 2006 or 7. So this was before I was even in any of this world. That was back when I was in the bar scene. And I just remember thinking like, if you know that is your catalyst, is alcohol is the catalyst for you to open yourself up to everything else, why are you hanging out in a bar? And it's the same thing. I mean, it's obviously much, we can say it's drastically different in the case with Matt with the M&Ms, but Parker pooped. Good job, buddy. But it it also goes, it can also go the same. I figured as much, Jer. It could also go the same way in that, you know, with the M&Ms, if that's what takes you, like if you're absolutely crushing your meal plan and you have that one like break food, and then it's like, then it's pizza, and then it's this, and then it's that, and it's like, then that is the one food that you can't have. And unfortunately, we as people feel that, oh, well, I can have that, and this time it's not going to happen. But it does. And it was the same, you know, and obviously my friend's example, you know, was a lot, what we would call a lot worse, because, you know, obviously it was drug related. But it's very similar in the same context that if you have a food that is an absolute trigger, then just don't allow that into your life. And then that is one more area at which you can prevent yourself from having those moments where you quit, where, you know, your thoughts, your negative thoughts overrule your positive thoughts. Now, I'm not saying you have to sit there and say, I am a great person all day long, because again, there's going to be 50,000 thoughts that go through your head, but it's the actions that determine your outcome that will determine the type of person that you are and the type of life that you lead. So that kind of all ties back to this subconsciously, are you ready to quit? So when you get up, are you getting up dreading working out, dreading your nutrition plan? If you're mentally, you're not into it, then you're already in that position. So you have to start to look at like, okay, what are my reasons for working out? What are my motivations for working out? What are my, you know, look at it from an intrinsic factor. What inside of me, why do I want to do this? Why do I, you know, and put them down on paper, because when you put them on paper and it becomes like pen, paper, and it's like in front of you, like I can say it in my head, oh, I want to make sure that I'm the healthiest father I can be. It's meaningless. But if I put it on paper and then I have to physically look at it, it holds more weight. So if you're subconsciously, if you're in that spot right now, put it on paper, you know, journal it down and put on paper why you are chasing these goals and dreams, because then you can start to formulate, okay, so if it's on paper, if my goal is to become an Olympic sprinter, probably not going to happen. What do I have to do to make that happen? So now you can start to reverse the whole system. And then it's like, okay, where do I know there's going to be obstacles? Well, one for me is going to be age if I'm going to be an Olympic sprinter. So, you know, you can start to work your problem backwards. So are you subconsciously ready to quit? And if you are, it's time to take out pen and paper and figure out what negative thoughts are in there, what positive thoughts are in there, why are the negative thoughts in there, and how can we start to shift that so that it's like, I'm going to act on these other pieces that are going to help me to move forward, as opposed to acting on these negative ones that are going to help keep me where I am. When we are comfortable, we don't typically have the same amount of growth. You might have some growth, but you have to be very uncomfortable in order to have large growth. And if you think of it from, you know, if you were in high school and when you first started playing sports, they'd have you do practice 2-a-days, and you were so sore for the first month and a half. But what they're trying to do is break down those barriers of, you know, you've been sitting on your ass all summer, and yeah, sure, you've been playing summer soccer or summer basketball or whatever the sport, but you've been playing at a comfortable level, and now they're trying to make you uncomfortable. The military does the same thing with boot camp, is they try to break you of everything that you were to build you into what you should be to become an effective part of the armed services. So if you're subconsciously ready to quit, it's time to start rethinking your thought process. So tomorrow, Josh will be on. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a very, I think for a lot of you, it will be very eye-opening. So, I mean, and again, like if you're from the Syracuse area and Fabius area, especially Pompey, you know who Josh is. But if you don't, you're going to learn something tomorrow. So I suggest being ready to go at 8 a.m. with us, and it'll be a great morning. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Apparently I have to go change, Parker pooped his pants. Fortunately, he's got his diaper on, so didn't really poop his pants. But all right, guys, have a great day.